There's a ton of noise out there. So how do you get decision makers to pay attention to your brand? Start a podcast and invite your ideal clients to be guests on your show. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Hi, welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. I'm your host for today's episode, Sean Blackburn with Sweetfish Media. I'm joined today by Sam Tarell, and he's a national leadership specialist and speaker. Sam, how are you doing today?
Doing excellent. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. We're going to be talking about the human elements of business and how to balance that with tactics. But before we jump into that, I'd love for you to give people a little background on yourself and also what you and your team are up to these days.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit on my backstory. I started my first business when I was 18 years old. That business is called Hoop Brothers. And the purpose was to help high school basketball players to make the transition into college to earn scholarships for college recruiting. It started with just producing videos, highlight reels to send off to college coaches, but it expanded into a full recruiting service, built it over about 7 years, expanded internationally, helped thousands of players to reach the college level. And from that, I learned a lot about building, obviously, the business, but also building relationships with a lot of partnerships that we established is really how we built the business. And since then, I've stepped away from that and have grown to speak about leadership, some of the tactics that we use, but also the human element, what that means in business, how we coordinate as a team, how to motivate and inspire and grow a team from a holistic place, not only internally, but also with the relationships that we build externally as well. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Awesome. Yeah. And I love that overall today we'll be kind of talking about how we balance those tactics, but really B2B marketing, as we were talking before on the recording, it's more about the relationship. It's not about a customer persona as much. So I'm definitely excited to jump into this here. So maybe just explain what you mean by what is the human element and why is that a benefit?
Sure. Well, I think we spend a lot of energy and a lot of time focusing on the tactics, the process. But what we forget is that people aren't optimal. We can build machines and technologies and processes that are optimized for success, but ultimately there's that human element, which is the creative, the empathy, the vulnerability, the pains that we go through, the ups and the downs that we experience. And a lot of business operations are not designed to support that. So the human element is being able to bring your whole self to work, for example. That's what we talk about with our employees. On the relationship building side of that, it is not just talking to the business person, but talking to the human, the person on the other side of that call or that meeting, and really starting to build a more genuine relationship that's not about the tactics. And that's something that we can't have a sales script for all the time. We can't have a set marketing strategy for. There is parts of that are not measurable. And so how do we lead and how do we grow to manage that human element is basically what we help companies to do.
Awesome. And what are some of the ways that you guys help companies do that?
So we have a very detailed training that we go through, a leadership training where we talk about several different elements, one of them being authenticity. So being very clear and authentic, both internally and externally, with having very clear set expectations, but also being able to be a person as a leader, being able to be compassionate, empathetic, vulnerable, speaking your truth, speaking the things that you've been through. And we do a training for companies on that, as well as empathy and authority and different things of that nature.
So what are some of the common struggles that you see with businesses?
I think one of the areas that we see the most opportunity for growth in authenticity is allowing employees to speak their ultimate goals. One of the things that we talk about is being a business that people can come into and use as a stepping stone to get to somewhere else. We don't want our staff to come in and just say all the right things. We'd rather them be open and say, I want to use this opportunity to get to this next level. We want to know what their personal goals are and how it aligns with them. What we say is, it's better to have somebody working with us rather than for us. If they're working with us, that means they're working for their own goals. And that makes them work that much harder. So if they're not authentic about what those goals are, if they're not authentic about what they're trying to achieve and what their challenges are, and we're trying to put them into a box of what we want, and we don't allow them to be authentic with that, then we're missing out on an opportunity for not only for them to grow as a person, but also for the company to continue to grow, because they'll work that much harder if we can put them in a position to do what they not only want to do, but what will help them to continue to grow their career as well.
Makes sense. So when you guys are doing these internal trainings, how do you feel like that helps company culture? And obviously that's going to bleed into, marketing, sales efforts on all sides.
100%. So the company culture is really, one of the key things for us. And if we can build a culture that people want to be a part of, that they are actively engaging in their own personal growth, it makes them that much more motivated. People who are self-motivated are the ones who are working for their own goals. And so if we can align the goals of the organization with the goals of the individual, it makes everyone focusing on the same kind of trajectory, where they work that much harder and they don't necessarily need the same level of motivation, because they know it's not just for the company, but it's for them.
It's story time again, and we're talking about search engine marketing. Today, I'm going to tell you about a challenge within Pelican Case's B2B division. Pelican needed a partner with deep B2B expertise that could get them a massive bump in leads from their pay-per-click campaigns without increasing spend. After vetting a handful of agencies, they decided to go with Directive Consulting, a B2B search marketing agency located in Southern California. Directive took on this challenge by refining their targeting and building custom landing pages for their advertising efforts. Once implemented, they saw a 208% increase in conversion rate. Needless to say, Pelican Cases met their initiative. And I have a hunch that Directive can get these kind of results for you too. So head over to directiveconsulting.com and request a totally free custom proposal. That's directiveconsulting.com. All right, let's get back to this interview.
So Sam, talk to me about the difference between leading and managing and how you say that creates more opportunity.
Sure. So the way that I look at this, the way that I define this is management is managing the task and the process. So making sure the project gets done at the deadline that is set. Leading is growing the people. So they're very different attributes. To manage a project, we're trying to hit deadlines, we're trying to optimize the process, the tasks, but to lead is to help the people grow through the process. And I think what a lot of people struggle with, and it's not necessarily a bad thing if you care very deeply about the project, this tends to happen a lot, but what a lot of people struggle with is they care more about the completion of the project than they do the growth of the individuals who are a part of the project. And what happens with that is the leaders, the managers, start to micromanage because they are focused more on completing that project than they are the individual growing within it, which stunts the growth of that individual, ultimately halting the opportunity for growth in the long run. So by allowing the project to be led by staff and different things of that nature,
right,
and by focusing more on leading, it helps them to grow. And maybe on the first project, they don't do as well, but by giving them the ownership of that, they continue to grow, and then it helps further projects. So expansion can happen a lot quicker.
So then to your third point, how do organizations and leaders within it how do they balance empathy, which is super important within our processes, especially in the modern business world, with actual authority?
Sure. I think this is the topic that I feel like most people are on one side of the spectrum on. They feel like empathy and authority are opposites. So they feel like, oh, I don't want to be too nice. Some people are quote unquote too nice and they do too much. They're a pushover, so to speak. And then there's the other side of that where it's like they're bossy, they're having the authority side and they're lacking the empathy. And I think a lot of people see those at odds with each other, but I believe that they can grow together. It's not that you're too nice, it's that you're lacking authority. So authority to me means ownership over self and ownership over expectations. Empathy is giving the other person the space to have their own ownership as well.
All right, Sam. So whenever we're talking to B2B marketers and salespeople, what they're going to be concerned about is opportunity for growth. And so maybe speak a little bit to how focusing on these human elements and the humans within the actual businesses that they're selling to, and how that approach really can revitalize their efforts and lead to more opportunity.
Definitely. So rebounding what off we were talking about before, which is leading and managing, the same thing applies to building those relationships within the B2B marketing space. So rather than looking at, are we trying to get a sale from this person? Are we trying to complete the project? Are we looking at it from what is the best for this person and how can we help this person to achieve success at whatever level they are? Sometimes we push them in a different direction than the services that we offer simply because, we care more about them as a person than we do about selling our product. And what happens is we end up selling more from that because they can feel that. And the people that resonate with it the most, the people that are our ideal client will gravitate to us. And the ones that aren't, we don't burn a bridge with, and they will refer others to us because we built that genuine space with them. So we're looking at the long-term picture of that rather than just trying to convert a sale.
Absolutely. So the long-term relationship being the true value for growth and opportunity. Have you seen that within the different organizations that you've worked with lead to any sort of increase in sales or any sort of increase in opportunity substantially?
100%. So when I built Hoop Brothers, the basketball recruiting service, we built the business primarily off of B2B relationships. So we worked a lot with organizations that hosted their own events. They hosted events. They had high school players come out to those events, and we partnered with them to offer some of our services. And so building those relationships, every single phone call, every single partnership was different. Some of them, they were more focused on the video aspect. Some of them were more focused on marketing their own business. Some of them were more focused on money. Some of them were focused on impact. So it wasn't a one-size-fits-all opportunity. And when we were talking to them, we really wanted to align with their goals and what they were trying to achieve. And we tripled our revenue 3 separate times over the past 7 years from one year to the next, because we were able to land huge accounts that, really boosted our numbers a lot. And some of them took 3 years to establish. The first national partnership that we had was a 3-year relationship in the making. It was the first year we couldn't meet the requirements that they had, but we didn't just walk away from that. We still had a genuine relationship with them. The next year we reapproached them, talked to them again. They still had different requirements, another organization they were working with. And it wasn't until the 3rd year, while still maintaining that genuine relationship, that we were able to really meet everything that they wanted. And they were a little bit unhappy with the organization they were working with at the time. Just keeping that relationship and maintaining that genuine relationship while not trying to pressure them into anything is what allowed us to grow. And that ended up being a multi-$100,000 account.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's pretty similar a lot for our listeners who are in enterprise or really large scale project sales. That makes sense to really focus on the relationship and being authentic throughout that process.
To really re-emphasize the point of reflecting when you're thinking about this, and for the listeners listening, are you thinking more about the success of the project or the person on the other end of the call? If you're more concerned with the success of the project, then I believe, and based on the results that we've seen, that you'll actually get less results on the project than you will if you're putting that other person first and genuinely trying to build that relationship. So really looking at yourself, and it's not a tactic. There's not a specific words you can say. It's really your intention. The other person can tell if you're trying to manipulate rather than genuinely help them. So I would just encourage everyone to really think about that. When you're building these relationships in the B2B space, are you more focused on getting the sale, or are you more focused on helping the person? Because if you're more focused on helping the person, it builds genuine relationships and gives the opportunity for more sales to happen throughout as well.
I absolutely love that. So in your coaching, when you're talking about building intention, is there any sort of tactics that a person can do as they're approaching, their call list that they have or their target market?
I would say there's not a specific tactic. I mean, we could talk about things like asking them genuine questions, but ultimately the tactics will only stand up if we're memorizing them or reading them off a script. But when we go divert from that, our intention will appear. And so the only thing that I can say that's a tactic would be, before you get on that call, asking yourself the question, do I care more about helping this person or selling this product? I think in some cases, when we focus more on selling the product and helping the person, we're doing it from a place of knowing that our product is not what's best for the person. Because if we were to really say that, hey, I want to do what's best for you, and if you know that what you're offering is not best for them, that doesn't come with a lot of authenticity and confidence to sell that. So in some cases, that means the product or the service needs to be improved. And the more radical example would be, if you're in an organization that is providing something that you don't believe in, then that might be a time to pause and think, is this something that I want to continue to be a part of in that aspect?
Sure, absolutely. I've certainly been there when I've had that question on the other end and not sure how to establish that value. So the other thing that I could imagine it would be a call to do would at least be to understand your product better and understand the value proposition of your product better. So that's a fantastic point. If that's an issue, then there's bigger problems, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. So if somebody was curious to learn more, what would be the best spot for them to reach out to you at?
They can reach out to me through social media. The two most active platforms are LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram, and both are just Sam Tarell.
Perfect. And we'll have the LinkedIn profile for you definitely linked in our show notes at b2bgrowthshow.com. So absolutely encourage our listeners to reach out to you and to potentially get some coaching on how to balance tactics with human elements in business.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining me today, Sam. I really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Digital marketing agencies have a tough job. You have to stay on top of the latest marketing strategies for your clients and your agency. What if there was a way you could address both at the same time? Imagine your agency putting out content with greater quality and quantity. Envision bringing your clients a turnkey solution for one of B2B marketing's fastest growing media strategies, podcasting. You know, all those clients asking for your help with their account-based marketing efforts? Picture being the first to bring them the idea of content-based networking, showing them the proven strategy for breaking into their most coveted accounts. Here's the concept. Sweetfish Media is looking to work with a limited number of innovative agencies interested in a new partnership model. We produce a podcast for your agency. You introduce the power of podcasting and Sweetfish services to your clients. Everybody wins. Learn more at sweetfishpartners.com.